Hi. So today's topic, we are in the month of spirit. It's the third month. So first we talked about body and physiology and everything that's about our physical vessel. And then we talked about the mind and about how to control our mind and about mindsets and about how important it is to have practices like meditation and affirmations and to actually control our mind. And now, and also with the mind, is how much the mind actually controls our physical vessel. So I think about the nervous system and parasympathetic and sympathetic. And I have some clients that are experiencing panic attacks right now. And so how important that is to make that connection, right, with our mind and body and how that affects us. And now we're talking about spirit. And we are going to do a deep dive into the concept of rituals and what are rituals. And so I have some questions and some definitions that's really fun. Rituals are something that I have been teaching and learning and practicing about for decades. I'm so fascinated by rituals, and it seems that every culture and every society has rituals of one form or another. It's really this beautiful human phenomenon. And so, what are rituals? So, if you have a pen and paper, I want to invite you just to go ahead and just jot some ideas down. When I say the word ritual, what comes to mind? What does that mean to you? Like what do you think of rituals? Do you have good feelings, or do you have like not so good feelings? Do you think that rituals are beneficial to our society in any way? Or do you think that they keep society stuck? And when you think of rituals, like what kinds of rituals do you think of? Like what are the first ones that come to mind? And are these rituals that are like familial rituals? Are they something that's been passed from generation to generation? Or are they something that's more of a society influence? So, a definition of rituals is a religious or solemn ceremony consisting of a series of actions performed according to a prescribed order. So I thought that was a really interesting definition. So I'm going to read it again. A religious or solemn ceremony consisting of a series of actions performed according to a prescribed order. So the more I had looked at that definition and the more I thought about it, the more I thought, okay, wait a minute. What does solemn even mean? Like, what does that even mean? Or what does ceremony even mean? Do we even really know? Like, what do those terms mean? So I decided to look up those terms, right? And so I want to invite you to write down what you think that those terms are. What is solemn? When you think of solemn, what does that mean to you? Like if you could write a definition, what would your definition be? And then again, the feeling, like when you think of solemn, does that feel like that's something nice? Or does that feel like that's something more like, or maybe something in the middle, like inquisitive or edgy? Like what does solemn portray, right? And then the word ceremony, like what is a ceremony? And what's the difference between ceremony and ritual? And what does this have to do with talking about spirit at all? Right. So, the first month we talked about body, second month is all about mind, third month is all about spirit. So, why am I bringing up these topics in relation to spirit? Don't you want to know? It's kind of exciting. Stay tuned. So go ahead and write down, what do you think the term solemn is? Like, what does that mean to you? What do you think the term ceremony, what does that mean? So I went and I looked up solemn, and solemn, the definition is formal or dignified, characterized by deep sincerity. And I thought that was really beautiful. And the more that I felt into that definition, I thought of deep sincerity. I feel like I define that as very close to authenticity, right? So when somebody is authentic, they're sincere, they're being themselves, right? And that's a value. That's something that I would value as a positive thing. So the definition of ceremony is a formal religious or public occasion, typically one celebrating a particular event or anniversary, right? That's a ceremony. Or the second part of the definition is the ritual observances and procedures performed. So that was interesting because I used the word ritual. So all of these terminologies kind of start blending into each other and go hand in hand. And it's really fascinating. So rituals are something that I've always been curious about, and I've always had this interest in what are rituals all about, and what does their role play in humanity. And I would invite you to do your own reflection and your own journaling and your own investigation, right, in your own life, and rituals, and what do the rituals mean? What are rituals that you do, and just what are rituals? So, I've been observing rituals for a long time, and I would say that there are different categories of rituals, and there are also different levels of rituals, right? So a ritual I think of is something that we adhere to that is related to a value, where it's something that is more like a habit. So it's something that we do over and over and over again, right? As a ritual, it's related to a value, either a cultural value or a personal value. And it tends to be more in the realm of like a habit, like something that's done over and over again. And I would say that it imbibes this feeling of authenticity, right? Because it's a value, it's something that we value. And so why is that important in relationship to the mind? Well, to spirit. Well, because habits are more like the mind until they become something that's consistent. And then what happens is it becomes more related to spirit and this sense of authenticity. So what happens with the mind and the spirit, from what I understand, and is that once we're able to create a structure where we can feel safe and we can feel solid and we can relax, that's when we can allow the divine or spirit or universal truth or infinite intelligence to come through, right? And so it's through these structured places in our life where we feel safe and secure. We've actually established these structures, these beautiful structures, and so that we can actually like put our mind to the side, right? So we create these structures that are around our values, and we can be like, okay, hey mind, this is already done. Like we've already done this a zillion million times, right? Because it's really like a habit, right? So it's something that you've done over and over again. It's repetitive. And so you're asking your mind to just take a back seat. And when we ask our mind to take a back seat, which doesn't really happen unless we're feeling safe, right? So last lecture, we talked a lot about the difference between being in fear and being in love and the psychology of that, and the percentages of that, and being in the have state. And so this idea of rituals is that we've created this safe container with this structure. And so then we can allow our mind to take a back seat because we know that we're safe and we know that we're in alignment with our values. And when we do those things, when we relax, surrendered, and let go, then we can allow spirit to drop in, which is a really beautiful thing. And we all want to be living more and more coming from this authentic place and coming from this deep connection with spirit, with the divine, with our higher self, and ultimately embodying our soul self is where we're going with that. So when I think about habits and rituals, rituals can be really small, more like habits, right? So we can start there with that basis. We all think of like, okay, brushing our teeth every night, and sometimes we'll even say in casual context, like, what are your evening rituals or what are your morning rituals, right? It's like, well, I wake up, I have my tea, I do my manifestation affirmations, I do my workout, I poop, I clean up my room, I change my clothes, I take a shower, I make breakfast, like I kiss my dog, like whatever you do, you have your morning routine, and people will call that your morning ritual, right? And it's a ritual because it's an alignment with your values, and it's something that you do in this repetitive state, right? This repetitive action. And so when we're doing that, like this habit that's in alignment with our values and this repetition, we can allow for the divine to come through. So if you have a morning ritual where you're sitting and drinking your tea and in quiet contemplation and having your meditation and doing your manifestation affirmations, you're really setting up a lot of success for yourself. And that's why I'm emphasizing how important rituals are. So it's really important to establish, and give some thought and some, real like reflection of what are my rituals and are these beneficial, right? I mean, some people's rituals, and not that this is right or wrong or good or bad, right? It's just an is thing. Some people, wake up, they grab coffee and they zoom out the door, right? And they don't pause to eat or poop or brush their teeth or anything, right? And that's just, that's the way that they're choosing to live their lives. And in a way, that's more of a reaction rather than a responding to their environment, but it's a certain level of a habit and a ritual, right? I wouldn't necessarily say that's a ritual. I would actually say that that's a habit, because that's more of a reacting versus responding. So a ritual is, well, even like the sound of the word, there's more richness there. So it's a little bit more of a depth past a habit, right? So the basics of the rituals, the very, very basics, I think of morning rituals and I think of nighttime rituals. I think of some other rituals are, reading a book before bed. It's really easy if you have children or if you're around children. Children love rituals. And why? Why? Because it's this idea of creating this structure for them so that they can relax and they can feel safe. So I remember with my kids, leaving them for preschool, or like when they were little, the first one, I was in graduate school, so he did a little bit more daycare. And, we had to do all of these rituals before I left him. And my second one too, like we'd go through this whole kissing thing where he'd like kiss all these different parts of my face, before I was allowed to say goodbye and go out the door. And because it's this way in our psyche to kind of create this beautiful security. So it's through these rituals that we can relax, surrender, let go. And there's not as much of that reacting. It's more of a responding, right? And trusting and loving. Because if you think about it, the rest of our day, like we don't know what's going to happen, right? We have no idea. And this tendency of living in fear and wanting to control our environment, because it is a wild, crazy world. I mean, being creators of our own existence is a big job, Like, and every minute and every moment we're creating our own reality, and if you really are in alignment with that and you don't take that lightly, there's a lot going on there. And so, for the people that are listening to this and all of you all, it's, we want to be living a transformational lifestyle. And for me and for a lot of other people that I've heard reflect on this, it's a lot. It's a lot to be living a transformational lifestyle because, you know, it's a lot of responsibility because we realize how powerful we are. And this is why I'm highlighting rituals. I'm highlighting rituals because it's a way for us to be able to relax, surrender, and let go. It's also a way for us to celebrate and experience joy in our lives. So that brings me to like the next kind of middle level of rituals, right? And if you think of rituals and celebrations, so, creating some really fun rituals. So a lot of people are more involved in like full moon, new moon rituals, like if you're going to Google the word rituals, that comes up. It hasn't always been like that it's been socially acceptable to do new moon and full moon rituals. So what is that all about? That is a way to nourish our spirit, to relax our psyche and to just create this structure again, where you don't have to think about it, right? So the new moon is all about embracing newness in your life. You can relax into that ritual of the new moon and just talk about embracing new things and move with the energy. So one of the things that I did, and I posted about this in our group Transformational Tone, was my partner and I decided to do this really fun ritual of planting trees on the new moon. And it was just the new moon recently. And we had just had this incredible, beautiful, blissful connection at this dance camp that we go to, which was really good for us to remember how much we like each other. And then we came home, we've got 5 teenagers right now, and it's just a lot, so we're like, okay, how can we keep, our connection going once we get home? Rituals. Like, you got to set yourself up. You got to be fierce about this transformation stuff. We want to be working smarter, not harder. Like, two, semi, functioning strong adults against like 5 teenagers. Like, you think we have a chance? And 3 dogs and 3 chickens and a cat, it's like, no, we don't have a chance. So how can we support ourselves? Rituals, right? Because you don't have to think about it. You don't have to question. It's already written. It's already done. Like, how beautiful and nourishing and wonderful. Like, what human on this planet would not want to go and plant a tree? I mean, it's so basic, right? And it's so loving, and it's a ritual. So it's the new moon, you get a new tree, you go, you dig a hole. There's kind of a good way to do that, right? So, it's actually quite a process. So look into that. It's actually not that simple, as I've discovered over the years, if you really want your tree to thrive, right? And it's something that you can have so much joy and beauty and choosing the tree and where it should go. And we actually chose an olive tree because olive trees are for peace, and that's in our front area where people come in. And, it's just such an easy way to relax into spirit and into the divine parts of the human, and celebrating and moving into this place of joy. So if you think about it, I mean, there are some rituals that are around death and dying, right? In a lot of the traditional cultures, I'm thinking of Judaism in particular. There's a lot of rituals that they have around people that are, in different stages of mourning, and what they wear and what they do and what they eat, right? A lot of traditional cultures are like that. there's still a lot of joy and connection in that, right? Because of the rituals around that. And so that's pretty much the only one. And it is in a way celebrating life because it's celebrating the people that are around there. So I would say that, I'm going to make that bold statement that rituals are really all about celebrating life and celebrating love and joy. And we know that joy is one of the highest vibrations, right? Having fun, being grateful, having this sense of, just feeling grateful in our lives and having this joy and fun and playfulness are all things that happen around rituals, right? And so think about rituals. I think of, marriage ceremonies, right? There's certain rituals. We can think about certainly like Halloween or Easter, in our culture, there's certain rituals in that. And so I just want to invite you to, look at some of these rituals that are in our culture and society, and then maybe start to create some of your own, right? So beautiful. I mean, we can do that. We can do that and also really take a stand for ourselves. So when my kids were little, one of the things that we used to do is we would celebrate winter solstice. Like I loved doing that. So winter solstice comes before the actual Christian holiday, and I wanted to catch them before they had all the commercialism. And we would go out at night and we'd do all these really fun things, and we create our own family ritual. And again, it's like just moving into this place where we don't have to think, we don't have to question, right? We don't need to know. We're just moving into this place where we're feeling, we're experiencing, we're being this sense of wonder. So we would go out and we would go do that. It was so much fun, So some other rituals, that people have are around the seasons and then also migrations. If you look at traditional cultures and animals, right, there's lots of rituals around that. And, connecting with nature and Mother Nature and all of that. So some of the rituals that I have brought into my own life that have worked really well is having a morning ritual, and I describe some kinds of things that we can do in the morning. So those are some of the things that I do. Having an evening ritual, right, of like treating ourselves like a newborn babe, reading for 30 minutes before we go to bed. And then also I would invite you to do a gratefulness practice. So that's one of the things that I talked about in the tiny habits, again, posting in our group, and doing a gratefulness practice and also a forgiveness practice. That is such a beautiful ritual. And again, it's something that we just do. We don't have to think about it, right? And it's so powerful. So every night before we go to bed, we can say, I forgive, I forget, and I let go, right? And it's a ritual. It's just it's a feeling. It's something that creates this joy and gratefulness and levity and presence with where we're at. So, I want to invite you to do some reflection on some rituals that you experience, that you have experienced in your lifetime. And then also invite you to create some of your own rituals and then see what magic develops, see what magic comes from about of creating these rituals in your life. And my hope and wish and prayer for you is that this brings a state of presence and gratefulness and joy in your life. And that is all for this talk on rituals. Lots of light and love to you, and bye for now.